This is a vital part of our ironcast commitment to stand with Ukraine for the long term. It paves the way for the legal framework under which British, French and partner forces could operate on Ukrainian soil, securing Ukraine's skies and seas and regenerating Ukraine's armed forces for the future.
Russia's first and most chilling response came after the UK and France declared that they would operate on Ukrainian soil. On Thursday, Russia said any troops sent to Ukraine by Western governments would be legitimate combat targets. The Russian Foreign Ministry, in a statement, said militaristic declarations by a coalition of pro-Ukraine Western governments were becoming increasingly dangerous. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova doubled down on Moscow's long-standing position. She declared Western forces in Ukraine as legitimate targets. Russia has long opposed the presence of any Western troops in Ukraine. She characterized the agreement reached by Ukraine's allies a new militaristic declaration. Remember, Russia has repeatedly said that it was forced to invade Ukraine to prevent it from being absorbed into NATO and used as a launch pad to threaten Russia. Russian warning comes after a dramatic move in Paris on January 6 this year. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, French President Emmanuel Macron, and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer signed a draft declaration on security for Kyiv at the Coalition of the Willing meeting. The mission? To secure Ukraine's skies, seas, and rebuild its army.
This coalition of resolute members shows a new stage, which in my opinion corresponds to what we defend, and which in my opinion also corresponds to America's wishes. What France has been defending over the past years is a more independent Europe and greater strategic autonomy. In other words, a Europe that takes care of itself and more of its own security, adhering to NATO frameworks but investing more. And this is what President Trump spoke about during his first term. And now Europeans need to take on more responsibility, and this is what we're doing, and it is logical. All the work that has been done in recent months through the efforts of resolute coalitions, and I want to highlight Japan's presence in this coalition, and Canada and Australia and New Zealand in particular. The Canadian Prime Minister was with us today. It is a very strong signal. He is also committed to this security guarantee. In other words, this is a coalition of the resolute, if you can say that. It is like the living heart of support to Ukraine to guarantee its security. It speaks of what the next day will be, how we position ourselves to provide Ukraine with all necessary assistance, and in particular the Ukrainian army that will ensure it, along with the participation of international forces. Here, the support and involvement of Americans is, of course, important for many countries. This is very important for many countries that are members of NATO, but it is also important because the forces of America, and specifically the exclusive forces that only America has, are key, and these last weeks have shown changes because the Americans are involved. As Chancellor Merz mentioned during a meeting in Berlin, he showed a certain stage and indicated the direction. Further, the American general, who is in charge of the American forces in Europe, but also coordinates American participation in NATO, was also present with us and participated in these planning sessions. That is, there are already several in these layers of security where America has clearly stated its position, its presence, particularly regarding monitoring, that is, oversight of the front line. And the presence of Americans is extremely important. It was confirmed. In recent months, we have developed a certain block, which is logical, stable. The Americans are demanding more from us, and this is logical, and we want this too. First, there is a decisive coalition that provides such guarantees, but we also have an American presence, thanks to those forces and the backstop to these guarantees. In this context, on one hand, President Trump's declaration at Mar-a-Lago with President Zelensky last year, which was confirmed by competent generals in this chain of command, and what was confirmed today by Mr. Witkoff by Kushner, it is very logical, and it is American involvement in the name of peace. I thank them for this, and I see no reason today to doubt this support, due to their presence, due to what they said, and the work that was carried out with America to accompany and lead. This work confirms that America, as a signatory of the UN Charter, is also an ally of Europe, and that is why they are present today. They have worked with us these last few weeks. Thank you.
This is a vital part of our ironcast commitment to stand with Ukraine for the long term. It paves the way for the legal framework under which British, French and partner forces could operate on Ukrainian soil, securing Ukraine's skies and seas and regenerating Ukraine's armed forces for the future. We discussed these issues in detail today, and so I can say that following a ceasefire, the UK and France will establish military hubs across Ukraine and build protected facilities for weapons and military equipment to support Ukraine's defensive needs. And with our coalition partners, we've also agreed significant further steps. First, that we will participate in US-led monitoring and verification of any ceasefire. Second, we will support the long-time provision of armaments for Ukraine's defence. And third, we will work towards binding commitments to support Ukraine in the case of a future armed attack by Russia.
Meanwhile, the United States, represented by Trump's envoys Steve Witkoff and son-in-law Jared Kushner, ruled out sending its own troops to Ukraine. Witkoff, however, said that President Trump strongly stands behind security protocols aimed at deterring future attacks on Ukraine.
Because President Trump's mandate is that he wants a peace in Ukraine, and we are determined on his behalf to do everything possible to attain that peace. A lot of progress began first in Geneva. We made tremendous progress there. We moved on to Berlin. Lots of progress happened there. And as President Zelensky identified, we had a very compelling meeting in Mar-a-Lago. And we look forward to more progress as a result of everything that's occurred today. We think we're largely finished with security protocols, which are important so that the people of Ukraine know that when this ends, it ends forever. But we also think, critically, that we are very, very close to finishing up as robust a prosperity agreement as any country has ever seen coming out of conflicts like this. It will aspirationally mean large, large possibilities for the Ukrainian people. And we think we've made a lot of progress. We heard President Zelensky and some of the other people here talking about land options. That will be the most critical issue, and we're going to be continuing on with those discussions, and hopefully we'll be able to meet or come up with certain compromises with regard to that. But I do want to say this. We are here to mediate and help in the peace process, and we're prepared to do anything necessary to get to that place. President Trump strongly, fervently believes that this killing has to stop, that the carnage has to stop. And we're determined, all of us up here, to be a part of that.
For now, peace between Russia and Ukraine looks distant. And even if a peace deal is signed, Europe may face a new reality. With Russian missiles on standby, the region is walking a razor's edge.